To make me get divorced, my 14-year-old daughter framed me up by making it look like I was having an affair with my male assistant. In the hotel room, she looked at me coldly. Aunt Isabel said that if you and Dad get divorced, she can be my new mom. I don't want you to be my mom anymore. I like Aunt Isabel better. My husband Ethan said in a cold tone. Olivia, you've really let me down. Isabel is indeed more suitable for educating Lily than you are. I was completely disheartened and went home to move out all of my things. I only left a divorce agreement and a letter severing the mother-daughter relationship. On the third day after being beaten up by the male assistant's girlfriend and her accomplices and being hospitalized, I stared blankly at the grayish-white ceiling in silence. The needle marks on my arm were still throbbing faintly. The mother-daughter relationship that I had nurtured for 14 years was shattered to pieces by a conspiracy. 3 days ago, I received a message from my husband Ethan. Shanghai International Hotel, waiting for you. I thought that this blockhead of a husband had finally come to his senses and remembered my birthday. Never had I expected that as soon as I knocked on the hotel room door, I was knocked unconscious. When I woke up, I was only wrapped in a thin bath towel. And the man holding me was not my husband, but my male assistant. Before I could figure out what had happened, the hotel door was smashed open. The assistant's girlfriend, along with 2 other women, rushed in and started beating me up. Then my husband and daughter also arrived. My daughter Lily hid behind my husband and looked at me coldly. Aunt Isabel said that if you and Dad get divorced, she can be my new mom. I don't want you to be my mom anymore. I like Aunt Isabel better, Ethan said in a cold tone. Olivia, you've really let me down. Isabel is indeed more suitable for educating Lily than you are. Before I could explain, Ethan left in a huff, taking our daughter with him. In the hospital, I turned my head to look at the patient lying on the adjacent bed. She was very happy. From the time she was hospitalized until her recovery, all of her family members were busy taking care of her. But during the 3 days I was in the hospital, my husband and daughter only came to visit once. Before the tears could fall, a message came through on my phone. It was a video sent by Isabel. The background of the video was a high-end coffee shop near the university. Isabel had on elaborate makeup. And the man sitting beside her, bowing his head to cut the cake for her, was my husband Ethan, whom I had been married to for 20 years. In the 20 years we had been married, he had never taken such tender care of me. The only time on my birthday when I sprained my wrist and asked him to cut the cake for me, he simply called the restaurant waiter. What did he say that day? Olivia, is it appropriate for someone of my status to cut the cake for you? You're a mother already. Why are you being so melodramatic? Oh, so as his wife, I was being melodramatic. But when it came to cutting the cake for his mistress Isabel, he was more than willing. All the excuses were just because I wasn't worthy. The video continued. Isabel picked up a piece of fruit with a fork and fed it to Lily. Lily, be a good girl. Eating fruit will make you fair-skinned. Fruit salad was Lily's most hated food. In the past, just because I accidentally put a small piece of apple on her plate, she threw a huge tantrum. She smashed the plate and poured the food scraps all over me, crying her heart out. Finally, I had to promise that I would never make her fruit salad again before she was willing to talk to me again. But now, she happily ate up the fruit salad that Isabel offered her with big bites. One bite after another, she ate up the whole plate. She looked at Isabel with eyes full of dependence and happiness. I like Aunt Isabel best in the whole world. Isabel smiled gracefully and smugly and asked her in return, then don't you like your mom? Hearing this, Lily immediately showed a disgusted expression. I hate my mom the most. She just forces me to study. It's so boring. The daughter I had painstakingly raised was actually slandering me wantonly in front of outsiders, and her father, my husband Ethan, was just quietly listening beside her. I finally realized that I was being greedy, actually foolishly wishing to get love from such a father and daughter. Forget it. From now on, I don't want such cold-blooded family members anymore. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, I went home early and cooked myself a bowl of noodles in the kitchen. Unexpectedly, Isabel came with them. At the first sight of me, my daughter Lily covered her nose in disgust. the smell of cooking oil on you is disgusting. The kitchen range had been on all the time. She was just doing this on purpose to amuse Isabel. Sure enough, her exaggerated performance made Isabel cover her mouth and chuckle. She looked at me with eyes full of smugness and provocation. I put the dishes and chopsticks into the dishwasher, ignored her, and turned to go into the bedroom. But Ethan hurriedly chased after me and looked at me with disgust. "How dare you come back?" I calmly turned around. "This is my home. Why can't I come back?" Ethan looked at me with a look of disgust. "You let your daughter see her own mother lying in bed with another man. How dare you still show your face in front of her?" I looked straight at him. That day was a misunderstanding. Nothing happened between me and the male assistant. The reason I went to the hotel was because you sent me a message. Ethan's face turned green. He threw his phone at me. That day, Lily was using my phone to take online foreign language classes all day. "How could I have sent you a message?" I tilted my head and met my daughter's gaze. I noticed that in the angle that Ethan couldn't see, she gave me a sly smile. Sure enough, on Ethan's phone, I couldn't find that message. Moreover, I was surprised to find that the message on my phone was also gone. I grabbed my daughter's shoulders with both hands and asked, "Lily, was it you who did this? During my hospitalization, only you touched my phone. Ugly old hag, don't get that wrinkled face of yours close to me. You're not my mom. Aunt Isabel is my mom. You don't deserve my dad at all, let alone being my mom. From now on, Aunt Isabel will be my mom." The old witch is pinching my shoulders so hard. "Aunt Isabel, save me." Isabel pulled the daughter over and shielded her behind. "Sister Olivia, don't be so fierce to the child." I gave her a glare. Seeing this, Ethan actually protected them both and stood in front of me. Isabel deliberately put aside her work to come home and accompany Lily today. "It's okay if you don't show gratitude, but why are you putting on this ugly face for? Go to the hospital for a checkup quickly. There are still children at home. If you bring back some disease, I'll never forgive you." I stood at the door, with a cold look in my eyes. "Well, I'm shameless while she's chaste. Let's get divorced. You three can be together from now on." My voice was soft but clear. A hint of disdain flashed in Ethan's eyes. "Olivia, where did you pick up this bad habit? Threatening with divorce at the slightest provocation? Do you think you can threaten me?" Isabel also stood up, speaking in a seemingly gentle tone to persuade me, but actually fanning the flames. "Olivia, don't get me wrong. Ethan and I are just college classmates. I can see that Ethan is a good husband who is responsible for his family. You two have a lovely daughter. You should cherish it. How can you mention divorce so casually?" Sure enough, the lines of green tea bitches are all quite similar. Besides, Lily has already told me. It was you who had an affair with the male assistant first. If anyone should mention divorce, it should be Ethan to you. Sure enough, with her reminder, the disgust in Ethan's eyes towards me grew even deeper. I nodded indifferently. "You're right. So I'm giving you this stinky shoe of his." After saying that, I turned around and walked into the bedroom, ignoring the secretly gleeful Isabel and the gloomy-looking Ethan behind me. Lily shouted at my back, "Dad, divorce Mom quickly. She's so dirty." I turned my head and glanced at Lily. She guiltily shrank back behind Isabel. At this moment, I knew that the daughter I had raised for 14 years was an ungrateful wretch. I had misinvested my feelings all these years. I packed all my things in the bedroom into a suitcase. I placed the signed divorce agreement and the letter severing the mother-daughter relationship on the desk, and finally took off the wedding ring on my ring finger. Ethan didn't follow me into the room. From the adjacent study, the sound of heavy objects hitting the wall could be heard from time to time. Sure enough, Isabel's scheme had succeeded. Because not long after that, I heard the affectionate conversation between two people coming from the adjacent study. I felt as if I had fallen off a cliff, and many past events flashed through my mind. Ethan wasn't good at doing housework, but every time Isabel came, he could patiently study how to make pour-over coffee for her. As for me, in the 20 years of our marriage, he had only made tea for me once, and it was with the low-quality tea from the public tea room. Under Ethan's influence, the 14-year-old daughter also got closer and closer to Isabel. She went to beauty salons with her all day long to do facial treatments, leg treatments, and even wore fake nails, got ear piercings, and tattoos. She was a typical little hooligan girl. Now, she actually helped the mistress design a trap to frame me for having an affair. This was something I never expected. I opened my phone. On WeChat Moments, Isabel posted a photo of the delicate snacks on the desk and the back view of Ethan grading her thesis. And she captioned it, "There will always be someone in the world who will always be by your side when you're most down." Just 1 minute after the photo was posted, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law couldn't wait to give it a like. My mother-in-law even commented, "Isabel is so learned. Unlike some people who have been married into the family for 20 years and are still so ignorant." My sister-in-law also chimed in, "I'm a straightforward person, so I'll just say it. Please, Sister Isabel, take my brother. My brother's current wife has such a low education." I knew they were nitpicking and mocking my graduate degree, but I still casually gave it a like, but when I refreshed again, that WeChat Moments post was gone. I didn't bother to care anymore and walked out of the bedroom with my suitcase. Seeing me carrying the suitcase, Ethan snapped coldly, "Isabel's WeChat Moments post was just a joke. Do you have to make such a big deal out of it?" Isabel also had red eyes and apologized insincerely, "Olivia, I didn't know you would really mind. If I had known, I wouldn't have come over to make you angry today." I looked at Ethan calmly and said in a cold tone, "I've left the divorce agreement on the desk. See you at the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow morning." During the conversation, the reserved online car-hailing vehicle arrived. I turned around and left. Ethan was about to say something, but daughter Lily blocked in front of him. "Let her go." She threw a book at me. It was the review materials for the high school entrance examination that I had stayed up for a whole week to make for her. "Get out quickly. Aunt Isabel will be my new mom from now on, okay?" I opened the car door and got in. "Let's go, driver." The vehicle drove away, leaving the father and daughter far behind. In the car, looking at the receding scenery outside the window, I recalled my relationship with Ethan, and back then, in order to successfully complete my graduate studies, I worked part-time while studying. I was a tutor in Ethan's family. I tutored Ethan's elderly father in ancient Chinese studies. The old man was an ancient book enthusiast and also a famous literary professor in the last era. Because we had similar interests, I got along very well with the old man. He even wanted to recommend me to his alma mater for a doctoral degree and promised to help me apply for a full scholarship. At that time, Ethan had just been rejected by Isabel and was muddling through his days, buried in his research. I had no interaction with him originally because he rarely came home. Only on holidays would he come home to visit the old man. So even though we were from the same university, he had never known me. Until Isabel went abroad for further studies, he was once again immersed in academics and couldn't extricate himself, and because of this late-night discussion, I got pregnant with my daughter. After that day, Ethan was almost driven out of the house by the old man. My marriage with Ethan was also arranged by the old man before he passed away. No matter how much Ethan's mother resisted, it was of no use. Actually, the moment I learned that I was going to marry Ethan, I was secretly delighted. Because I had had a crush on this erudite professor since I entered graduate school. However, after getting married, Ethan and I were both busy with our own things, and our weekly communication was like fulfilling a task. Only after an academic discussion related to Isabel would Ethan excitedly burst into my study and chatter on and on to share with me. Our relationship had a brief revival just before Isabel returned to teach in our country, but to my surprise, everything changed after Isabel came back. At the welcome party, she tearfully said that she had been headstrong and missed her best academic partner, and now that she had come to her senses, she had to collaborate again. So she returned to our university, and upon hearing the news, Ethan, even disregarding the appointment to discuss a thesis with me, rushed straight to the school. After Isabel returned to the school, she gradually took over my marriage and family, until my husband and daughter both became her most loyal followers. The vehicle stopped steadily downstairs of the staff dormitory of the city museum. I got out of the car with my luggage and opened the single apartment that the curator had always reserved for me. Before I could even finish unpacking my luggage, I received a call from the curator. Olivia, we've received a task from above. A batch of precious ancient books has been discovered in Xi'an and needs to be urgently restored. The high-speed rail ticket for tomorrow has already been booked for you. Hurry up and pack your luggage and set off. Don't worry, this task is urgent. When you come back, I'll accompany you to explain to your Ethan. No need, curator. I'm planning to get divorced and focus on the ancient book restoration work from now on. I replied softly. Ethan didn't like it at all that I was wholeheartedly devoted to ancient book restoration. He thought it was boring and said that it would make me unable to spare any attention to take care of our daughter. I used to care about him and our daughter. So whenever the curator arranged work like business trips for me, I would always decline if possible. Now I finally realized that the only things that won't betray me are those seemingly old ancient books in the museum. Hearing what I said, although the curator's tone carried a tinge of regret, he was ultimately relieved. Oh, Olivia, it's good that you've come to your senses. You're excellent. To be honest, we all think that Ethan doesn't deserve you. A warm current flowed through my heart. The curator had treated me like his own daughter all these years. I smiled with relief. Well, I think so too. That night was the most peaceful night I'd had in recent years. I didn't have to prepare coffee for Ethan, who was working overtime, nor did I have to prepare a midnight snack for Lily, who was staying up late to finish a thesis. I slept soundly until dawn. I simply washed up and dragged my luggage directly to the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. But after waiting for 3 hours, Ethan still didn't show up. I sent him over a dozen messages, but he didn't reply. As the departure time of the high-speed rail was approaching, I had to leave first. After going through the ticket-checking procedures and before turning off my phone, a piece of academic news popped up on the news interface. Famous Professor Ethan announced that he will co-host a major research project with Dr. Isabel. College classmates are really an invincible existence. Is Ethan going to personally promote Isabel now? I couldn't help but sneer, exited the news interface, and turned off my phone. Looking at the scenery speeding by outside the train window, I was calm. No matter what they do in the future, it has nothing to do with me. Putting on my headphones, I immersed myself in the professional audio about ancient book restoration until a violent jolt woke me up. The passengers around were all in a panic. I didn't have time to think about what had happened. The next second, the high-speed rail made an emergency stop, and my head bumped against the seat in front of me without warning. In the university office, Ethan had just finished the discussion meeting about the research project with Isabel. That he then noticed that there were over a dozen unread messages from Olivia on his phone. A colleague joked, "Mrs. Ethan still cares about you as always. It's really enviable." Ethan, however, sneered, "She's begging for forgiveness. I still have to keep her at arm's length so that she'll know not to interfere with my work casually." But he was interrupted by an unknown call. "Hello, is this Mr. Ethan, the husband of Ms. Olivia?" At 11 o'clock this morning, the high-speed rail that Ms. Olivia was on unfortunately derailed due to a malfunction. 3 years later. "Mom!" A loud voice rang out in the yard. I put down the ancient book in my hand and walked out of the study with a smile. A little boy covered in dirt rushed into my arms like a cannonball. I casually picked up a wet wipe to wipe his face. After a few wipes, the white wet wipe was smeared gray, and then the little boy's fair and clean little face was revealed. "He is Lucas, an orphan I adopted 3 years ago after I came to Xi'an." "Little muddy monkey, did you go digging in the dirt again?" The little boy showed his front teeth. "I caught a cricket." He sounded quite proud. "Do you still remember the seal characters I taught you yesterday?" "Mom, I'm hungry." Lucas stuck out his tongue, and his big eyes rolled around as he started to change the topic. "I helped the curator sort out a big box of ancient books this morning. You must be so tired." I rubbed his soft hair and looked at the smart little boy with satisfaction, feeling warm in my heart. "There are wontons and steamed eggs left for you on the table. After eating, wash the bowls clean." Mom has to go to work. The little boy's eyes lit up immediately, and he said excitedly, "Don't worry, Mom." He ran with his heels hitting each other and rushed into the kitchen to start eating. I then changed into my work clothes and walked towards the museum with my restoration tools. In these 3 years, more and more precious ancient books have been discovered, and my restoration skills have become more and more proficient. But I had only been working for a while when the curator rushed over to me in a hurry. "Olivia, you'd better go home quickly. Someone saw your Lucas being bullied at the entrance of the museum." I was so worried that I rushed towards the entrance immediately, but at the entrance, I saw Ethan and Lily, whom I hadn't seen for 3 years, as well as Lucas, who had been pushed down to the ground by Lily. "Olivia." Seeing me appear, Ethan walked towards me eagerly. Compared with 3 years ago, he looked much more haggard and aged. I pushed him away forcefully and strode over to Lily, who was looking at me with teary and excited eyes. I grabbed her arm and flung it aside. Lily staggered from the push and, covering her arm, said with teary eyes, "Mom, I'm Lily. Why did you push me?" I picked up Lucas and held him in my arms, gently soothing him. Hearing her words, I snorted coldly, "I'm not your mom. Don't you forget that I've already severed the mother-daughter relationship with you. Your beloved Aunt Isabel is your new mom now." Lily's lips trembled, and her face suddenly turned pale. "I didn't accept her as my new mom. That's none of my business. I have nothing to do with you and your father anymore. Please don't bother me." I turned around with Lucas in my arms and was blocked by Ethan, who had a dark face. "Are you married?" Lily, even angrier, pointed at Lucas and demanded, "He said he's your son. How is that possible? I don't have a younger brother. Lucas is a child I adopted, and I'm not married either," I said calmly. Hearing this, the expressions on Ethan and Lily's faces became expectant. "But don't you forget that I used to have a happy family, but you destroyed it with your own hands." I almost roared out these words, and Lily and Ethan's faces instantly turned ashen. "I'm sorry," Ethan said in a hoarse voice. "Can we start over? Come back with me, okay, Olivia?" Lily also grabbed the corner of my clothes. The once proud and conceited young lady was now crying so hard that her makeup was all smeared. "Please don't abandon me, okay? Mom. I miss you so much. I don't want any other woman to be my mom. I only want you." Lily was crying so hard that she could hardly catch her breath, as if she was going to pass out in the next second. Even Lucas was affected and his eyes turned red. The little boy choked back his sobs and pleaded with me, "Mom, I don't care about the fact that sister pushed me. Please don't make her cry anymore." I lovingly rubbed his head and explained softly, "She was the child I had before. She broke my heart, so I don't want her anymore." These words were like a final verdict. Lily's crying stopped abruptly, as if her throat had been choked. She looked at me with swollen and red eyes, full of horror and despair, not even daring to cry anymore. I carried Lucas back to the office. Ethan was unwilling to leave but didn't dare to get too close to me, so he could only pull Lily and follow from a distance. I didn't care about them. I carried Lucas back to the office to treat his wounds. Lily was over 10 years older than him, and she didn't control her strength well. Lucas had scrapes on his knees and elbows. I patiently coaxed him and finally finished applying the medicine. When I looked back, I found Lily looking at me with teary eyes. "Mom, my hand is also scratched." I looked at the tiny scratches on her slender fingers and remained unmoved. In the past, I loved her to the core. It wasn't just a scratch. Even if she just frowned casually, it was enough to keep me awake all night worrying about her. "Mom has work to do this afternoon. Be good in the office by yourself or the wound will get infected," I gently instructed Lucas. He opened his big, black eyes and looked timidly at Ethan and Lily behind me, and then at me. He asked anxiously, "Mom, are you going to leave?" I knew he was afraid that I would leave. The day I met Lucas, it was a rainy day. The 6-year-old little boy was wearing a school uniform full of stains, huddled at the entrance of the museum. His exposed calves were thin and white, and his short hair was messy and covered with mud. The curator said he was from the nearby orphanage. His parents had died in a car accident, and none of his relatives were willing to take him in. He had been wandering for several days before he met me. Looking at the pitiful little boy in front of me, I thought of my lost family. So, I adopted him, and I named him Lucas, hoping his future would be as sweet as sugar. Lucas was smart and sensible. I didn't want to hide things from him, so in the following days, I gradually told him about my past marriage and that I had a daughter. At that time, Lucas didn't make a fuss. He just silently leaned his small body against me and asked softly, "Mom, are you sad?" He was asking about the me who was lying in the hospital bed, whether I was sad or not. I sighed, swallowed the tears in my eyes, and said softly, "Very sad." Hearing this, Lucas stretched out his small hand and gently patted my back, as if he had made some kind of determination. From now on, Lucas will love Mom well. Mom, don't be sad anymore. From that day on, I had a son in my life. And no longer had a husband or a daughter. The memory was interrupted by Lily, who was slowly approaching. She had grown a lot taller and looked more and more like Ethan. She would be a beauty who could charm boys in the future. "Mom, could you please repair this for me?" Lily opened her hand, and what she was holding was, surprisingly, the book she had thrown at me on the day I left. I stared at the book in a daze. But Lucas was quicker than me. He pushed Lily's hand away and said seriously, "There are so many words densely written by Mom on this. But such a precious thing was broken by you. Now you still have the nerve to ask Mom to repair it again." I didn't do it on purpose. Lily blushed with shame, lowered her head deeply, and didn't dare to look at me again. Ethan seemed to finally remember the process of me making this high school entrance examination review material for Lily. At that time, he was still thinking about Isabel all the time and always had to go abroad to attend academic conferences every now and then. Lily was very unhappy and, at such a young age, deliberately skipped classes and missed exams, trying to get Ethan's attention in this way. I couldn't get in touch with Ethan, and the teacher said Lily needed parental care. I was extremely worried and stayed with Lily all day long. To help her improve her grades, I even stayed up for a week to make this high school entrance examination review material for her. The day she threw this book at me was the day the mother-daughter relationship between us was broken. Mr. Ethan, please don't disturb me and my son. I gave the two people in front of me an order to leave. If you don't want me to hate you, you can stay. As soon as these words came out, Ethan's face instantly became a bit ugly and rigid. For him, being willing to lower himself to come to me was already giving me a way out. "Olivia, I didn't sign the divorce agreement. I'm still your husband," Ethan said in a hoarse voice. "And Lily is your only daughter." You can't be so headstrong. Glanced at him with amusement and shoved my open phone in front of his eyes. "Ethan, your good partner Isabel has committed academic fraud. Why don't you hurry back and have a look?" However, Ethan calmly closed the phone and said with a helpless tone, "I know. It was I who reported it." I was stunned. But I quickly realized it was just nonsense. Could Ethan be willing to report his mistress and first love whom he doted on so much? I'd rather believe that the sun rises from the west. The appearance of Ethan and his daughter was just a small episode in my peaceful life. I didn't take it seriously at first. But unexpectedly, Ethan actually rented a house near the museum and simply settled down there. Lily, the young lady who had been spoiled since childhood, actually learned from Lucas and tried to please me. Lucas would get up early to sort out ancient books and would prepare a cup of coffee for me to take to work before going out. Lily would carefully make a pot of tea. The tea leaves were my favorite longjing. She would hold the teapot and wait outside my office door, looking eagerly through the glass door, afraid of missing me. Then she would be surrounded and watched by Lucas and the interns, feeling extremely embarrassed. Lily was very shy. Lucas said to her triumphantly, "Don't compete with me for Mom." Lily was so embarrassed that she could die, but still she was stubborn. "She's my mom too. I was born by her." Lucas retorted, "Then why would Mom rather have me, the adopted one, than you? You'd better reflect on it." Lily was left with tears in her eyes but could do nothing about it. While Lily and Lucas were bickering with each other, Ethan was wholeheartedly focused on me. He seemed to think that as long as he lowered himself and courted me properly, I would forgive him and get back together with him. So, when I returned to the office, what I saw was the comical scene of Ethan wearing gloves and restoring an ancient book. There was a pile of already restored ancient books on the table. Seeing me enter, Ethan showed a flattering smile. "Olivia, you're back? Come and see how I've restored this." I looked at him calmly and suddenly smiled. Ethan was a bit flattered. "Olivia, have you forgiven me?" But Lucas glared at him and said angrily, "Mom is allergic to acidic paper, so she can't touch the one you're restoring. And she's best at restoring silk manuscripts, so she's not interested in those paper ancient books you've restored at all. You see, even a little boy who has only been with me for 3 years can clearly know my specialty. But Ethan, my husband who keeps saying he loves me, doesn't understand at all. I used to often do these restorations before." Ethan was like a student who had made a mistake, standing there dumbfounded. I said softly, "Because it was required by the work. Because it was work, I didn't care. But now, I live only for my own interests." Back in the lounge, I changed back into my work clothes and planned to continue restoring the ancient book at hand. The next second, the door was pushed open. Lily walked in carefully, holding an ancient book in her hands. She had grown a lot taller and looked like a younger version of me between her eyebrows and eyes. "Mom, this ancient book was found by Dad and me together." After all, she was still a child. I didn't want to argue with her either. I took the ancient book and put it aside. Lily didn't leave. She looked eagerly at the notebook I made for Lucas on the bookshelf. There were cartoon avatars of me and him drawn on it, looking like a real mother and son. Suddenly, Lily started to cry, silently, but the tears just couldn't stop flowing. I was a bit surprised. Combining with Ethan's words, "It was I who reported it," a bad guess came to my mind. After I left, "Was Isabel not nice to you?" Lily nodded and then shook her head. I handed her a tissue. She then told the truth. She was only nice to me when there were people around. Behind my back, she would belittle me and even deliberately smear me. I stood still. Lily reached out her hand, trying to hold mine, but I avoided it. She looked at me and said, "Mom, it was Aunt Isabel who instigated me to frame you for having an affair back then. She told me that if you and Dad got divorced, she would give me a sum of money to let me travel around the world. That I was in my rebellious period at that time. I liked to compare myself with other classmates at school. I was momentarily bewitched by her. That's why, I'm sorry. I misunderstood you back then. I only found out later that you didn't betray me at all." Ethan walked in at some point. He said with a guilty tone, "I thought she was still the same as in her student days. But I didn't expect that she had done a lot of academic misconducts these years abroad. She even instigated our daughter to design a trap to frame you for having an affair. Later, in order to cooperate with me, she even tampered with my research data. How could I have hurt you for such a woman back then?" Enough. I interrupted him. "The fact that you hurt me has already happened. The reason you're saying this now is only because you've found out that Isabel isn't as good as you thought. What if she was a good scholar? Would you still apologize for hurting me? Would you still feel guilty?" Ethan was stunned. I shook my head with a smile. "You wouldn't. Not only would you not, but you would also think that divorcing me was a quite correct thing to do. Because you've never really respected me from the beginning to the end. Ethan, you've never treated me from an equal perspective." After that day, Ethan quieted down a lot. Not only was he feeling guilty towards me, but also because their research project had been constantly questioned by the academic community due to Isabel's academic misconduct. I had been avoiding paying attention to the academic circle these years. I only found out recently that the paper with Isabel as the first author was exposed to have faked academic achievements before it was officially published. Her research results were just a big patchwork. She plagiarized no less than 20 original papers of foreign scholars. Originally, Ethan had suppressed the news and didn't make it public. It wasn't until, for some reason, Ethan suddenly severed ties with Isabel publicly 2 years ago. Only then did the academic community expose this matter again. Isabel, who was once an academic rising star, has now become an academic fraudster despised by the whole industry. But all of this has nothing to do with me. In the past 3 years, the ancient book restoration work in our museum is coming to an end. As long as we ensure the successful restoration of all ancient books, my work in the museum will come to a close. In the future, I can take Lucas back to the big city and let him receive a better education. Thinking of this, my mood has been much better every day. It was my turn to work the night shift on this day. The ancient book restoration room in the museum is underground and relatively enclosed. It's always silent all around at night. Even though I've been working here for 3 years, I still get a bit nervous. Every time I work the night shift, Lucas would always bring his toy robot to accompany me. I would play science popularization videos for him on the tablet while continuing to restore ancient books with a magnifying glass myself. In the latter half of the night, Lucas fell into a deep sleep, hugging the robot. However, I heard unusual footsteps outside the restoration room. Lucas's robot suddenly lit up with a red light and sounded an alarm. Because of the preciousness of ancient books, there will be lawbreakers eyeing us. Sure enough, before I could press the alarm button, the door of the restoration room was suddenly pried open. The whole basement was plunged into darkness. The incident happened instantly when I pressed the alarm button. The safe behind me was full of precious ancient books that had already been restored. Once they fall into the hands of thieves, the consequences would be unimaginable, but there was also the awakened Lucas beside me. I couldn't let him get hurt. In order not to let the thieves discover us, I held the tweezers for restoration in my hand, hugged Lucas, and carefully moved towards the emergency exit. But we still made some noise when going upstairs. There were 3 thieves in total, all young people wearing masks. They ran towards us. I was so scared that I picked up Lucas and rushed out. But obviously, I couldn't outrun them. However, just when I was about to be caught, Ethan burst in through the door with the security guards who arrived in time. But nobody expected that those thieves had brought electric shock batons. The moment the sound of electric shock rang out, Ethan lunged towards me. But I subconsciously pushed him away and tightly protected Lucas in my arms. Finally, all the thieves were captured, and Ethan was sent to the hospital in time. He was injured by the electric shock because I pushed him away. I took Lucas in the car to visit him, who had already come out of the emergency room in the university-affiliated hospital. His arm was bandaged. When he saw me, his eyes lit up for a moment and then quickly dimmed. I placed a book on the bedside table and comforted him. Lily has been picked up by her grandmother. School is about to start. Ethan nodded. I glanced at Lucas, who was obediently waiting at the door, thought it over carefully, and then continued. In the future, I will take Lucas and leave here to send him to school in the big city. I don't want him to have any connection with the Ethan family. Let's get divorced when you recover. Ethan found it a bit hard to accept, and his eyes immediately turned red. Suddenly, I couldn't quite remember what the Ethan who used to be so absorbed in research for Isabel looked like in the past. His tone was humble yet resigned as he said, "So there's really no chance for us two anymore?" After a moment of silence, I nodded. Ethan, like a convicted criminal who had just received a verdict, suddenly closed his eyes, and his chest heaved uncontrollably as he sobbed once. He was crying. Tears slid down his haggard cheeks. He choked back his sobs and apologized. "I never thought about getting divorced from you, Olivia. I stopped caring about Isabel long ago. But I had cooperated with her for 10 years. I couldn't accept the fact that she betrayed me. That's why I kept subconsciously choosing her. But I never thought about hurting you because of her. I punished Lily privately for framing you. During the days you were in the hospital, I canceled all of her credit cards. It was precisely because of this that she deliberately opposed you. It was my fault." He was delivering an apology that was 3 years late. "But I didn't need it anymore. On the day I heard about your high-speed rail accident, I was extremely scared. I never thought about losing you. Fortunately, it took me 3 years to finally find out about you. But I didn't expect that you would really, never want me and our daughter again." In the end, Ethan couldn't control himself anymore and burst into loud sobs. I stood up helplessly and, in the midst of his heartbroken crying, walked towards Lucas, who was looking over here curiously. I crouched down and asked him, "Come on, Mom, Olivia will take you to see the newly arrived ancient books." Lucas excitedly held my hand and hopped away. Half a month later, Ethan was discharged from the hospital. He came to the city where Lucas and I worked and went through the divorce agreement with me. Besides giving me a house and a car, he also transferred a generous research fund to me. I accepted it all. After all, raising a child requires sufficient resources. In the future, I will cultivate Lucas into an independent and confident person. Not like I used to be, being timid in the academic circle. In my eyes, Olivia was always taciturn. Just like her work, it was extremely boring and couldn't be compared with Isabel at all. But for some reason, every time I came home and saw her, my restless heart would always be soothed. So, I started to work at home on purpose. Just to be able to see Olivia and then strike up a conversation with her on the pretext of discussing academic issues. Looking at her focused side face, I found it very attractive. That late-night discussion was an accident. I didn't intend to have a relationship with Olivia. But when my father asked me to marry Olivia afterwards, I was unexpectedly relieved and even had some anticipation and joy. Life after marriage was as calm as ever. She was always wholeheartedly devoted to her ancient book restoration work. This made me very dissatisfied. So I deliberately said that her work was too boring and used our daughter as an excuse to ask her to focus more on the family. Actually, I also knew that these were all the accusations I forced upon Olivia. She was a very responsible mother. But my daughter was very much like me, both being spoiled people. Willful and arrogant because of our talents. Since Isabel returned to the country, Olivia had started to act strangely. She was always alone in the study, staring blankly, or she would get angry and be in low spirits because I had discussed academics with Isabel. I was also very annoyed. I thought she didn't know how to cherish her position a bit, but I was also secretly proud. Did it mean that she cared about me a lot? So, I deliberately discussed academics with Isabel and even wrote a recommendation letter for her. Anyway, most of those recommendation words were just templates. But as long as she got jealous, I would double my care for her after just doing this once. But I never expected that she would have an affair with her male assistant and even abandon our daughter. After seeing the divorce agreement, I was furious. I even agreed to Isabel's proposal of jointly applying for a major research project in a fit of anger. Only I knew that I was a bit panicked. This panic grew stronger and stronger after she ignored me for the whole night. Until I received the phone call notifying that the high-speed rail she was on had derailed. I completely broke down. Fortunately, it was just a misunderstanding. The high-speed rail did derail, but her name was not on the casualty list. However, I could no longer get in touch with her. Even Olivia's curator refused to tell me about her whereabouts. My daughter also gradually realized the fact that her mother had disappeared. She started to cry, shouting for Mom all night long. And she told me the truth about Olivia's affair with the male assistant. Looking at my daughter's crying face, I suddenly felt extremely disgusted. It was all her fault. It was also my own fault. Finally, after searching hard for 3 years, I finally saw her in a news report about ancient book restoration. I eagerly took the high-speed rail, taking my equally eager daughter with me to find her. However, 3 years had passed. Olivia had actually adopted another child. She didn't want our daughter. Nor did she want me anymore. No matter how hard I tried, she was always cold towards me. I finally understood. All of this was my own doing. I deserved it. From now on, I will lose the person I love most forever.